Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 15, and we're looking at exciting projects from the space. And what's more exciting than a cartoon which is in the style of South Park and Rick and Morty, but is actually about Bitcoin? And if you have been listening or watching the show for longer than a couple of years, you already know that I've had Robert, who goes by the name of Satoshi Sound, and he spoke about Bitcoin and Friends a couple of years ago. And at the time, he had released a bunch of episodes. He was supposed to put out season two, but instead of that, he decided to reboot the entire series and start with season one and improve on the animations, change the story a little bit. And it's exciting. We also have a trailer, which we're going to watch together. I'm going to share my screen and the audio. We're going to comment on what happens. So this is a lot of fun. And let me ask you this, Robert. Let me start with this. When should we expect to watch the first episode of the show?
We're launching on January 3rd, 15th birthday of Bitcoin. So very soon. Yeah. Very
excited. It's good to have you back. It's good to finally see your face. And
it's good to meet you in person in a sense now, or at least face to face.
Yeah, it's super exciting because I'm not sure if it was you or your brother Chris who does most of the voices on the show. You went on Adult Swim on some call a couple of years ago, and you promoted this indie project about the genesis of Bitcoin. And it's so I like it. The animation reminds you of more popular shows. It has this grotesque humor. It's something special.
Thank you. Yeah. So Chris does the voices. Well, not just Chris. We have, he does, I'd say 40% of the voices is Chris, Uncle Chris, as he goes by. And then Jake, Jumper Jake, as we call him, he's the voice of Metallic and about, I'd say 40% of the other characters. And then we have some voice actors that we've hired, many of them on Fiverr.com. But yeah, it's, so when we talked last, I don't remember it. I don't think we were planning to do a second season when I talked. Maybe that's the case. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and listen. But basically we launched this thing in 2019 and it was looking like we were going to see some success with the project. And then as we kept going, our view count dropped off a lot. At one point, we know that YouTube did shadow ban us. So we're not sure if it was because it was about Bitcoin or, as they claimed, it was because they said the content was shocking and vulgar. But I've seen all sorts of stuff on YouTube that is way more shocking and vulgar than what we produced. So I don't know what happened. But in any case, we were also learning a lot. Chris has done quite a bit of video production work and has written scripts and has been involved in a lot of projects. But this was our first attempt at an animated series. So it's challenging to do animation and do it well, especially on a small budget. But we've really, I think, kind of pioneered one of these newer technologies that Adobe has come out with called Adobe Character Animator. And so that really helped us. I'd say we've been able to cut our production time and cost probably between 5 and 10x less than if you're doing frame by frame animation. So I think that's one of those things, for any sort of field, if you can find a technology that's going to dramatically cut your production cost, it's really worth seeing what you can do and how far you can go with it. So yeah, I'm real happy. I think we really, and Jake should take a lot of credit. I kind of pioneered it and then I taught him what I knew. And then Jake has gone on and really gone further than I went with the platform. But we really upped the animation quality, I think, quite a bit on this season. And there are some frame by frame shots as well. There's some times where you can't really use the character animator program to the effect that you need. And so we've definitely cut in some frame by frame, which would be sort of the more traditional way of doing animation. And ideally, assuming we get some growth and success with this relaunch, then we'll try to up our budget even more for future seasons and really bring a high quality of animation to it, because we don't want people to be distracted. They should really feel immersed in the story, and a big part of that is making the animation not not get in the way of the story, as you could say. So yeah, do you want to show the clip now, or?
I want to make an introduction and tell people what they should be expecting from the show. So
Sure.
basically, in Bitcoin and Friends, you have this Bitcoin who is like a being. It's not human. It's not an animal. It's something of its own. It's a being that talks, is aware, but has no knowledge of the world around it. It's like a baby that just got born into the world. I think that's the introduction. I'm not sure if you changed it, but basically Satoshi, this mysterious figure, creates Bitcoin in a laboratory and then releases it in the wild. And you get this creature, which is very much confused about what it is, about what its origins are. And he gets adopted by someone who is an ice cream seller, but also sells drugs, something like that, Harold or something.
Jones. Harold is another character, another of the four kind of main characters. But yeah, that's exactly right, and exactly what we're going for. We wanted to anthropomorphize Bitcoin and make him this character where you're following his journey from his birth, from him essentially, as you said, being brought into this world where he doesn't know what's going on, doesn't understand anything, and then we're going to take people on a journey of following his growth and his life. So the first season is, maybe covering roughly 2009 to maybe 2012, 2013, let's say. And then subsequent seasons, if we're able to produce them and we continue on, we'll be, following the story of Bitcoin and the community that surrounds him and all of the intrigues, the personalities that have come and gone. We'll hit on, and it's not exactly historically accurate all the time, but we definitely want it to feel at least like it's like an alternate universe where a lot of things kind of rhyme with what we've experienced here in the history of Bitcoin. So yeah, that's basically it. And then I guess a couple of things to note too. Some of the changes from the first attempt at the show. One of the things we realized with our writing was we had tried to kind of ham-fistedly add in characters because we were, in order to fund the production, we actually basically sold like spots in the episodes. And so we had a couple people that came along and gave us funds to be a part of the project and to help us. Jeff Berwick of the Dollar Vigilante was actually one of the main people that did that. And so he was involved in the first season and he had a speaking role, and overall we were, happy to work with them, but, and I think he did just fine on the voice acting and everything. But the problem we found is as we kept trying to add in these additional characters, we had less and less screen time for Bitcoin and for sort of the main characters in the show. And we wanted to really get back more in the direction of like a sitcom where you have these main characters and they have really complex, fun interactions, and personalities that mesh or come into disagreement or whatever. But you get this dynamic that's kind of classic with a lot of TV shows where you get to know kind of a core of a couple characters and you really follow their journey. So we wanted to get back more in that direction. So we focused the writing more on Bitcoin, Harold, Metallic, and Jones. So that's one big difference. And then the other thing that I heard repeatedly as we showed the episodes around and went to conferences and things. One of the things we heard early on was that you had people that would potentially want to show it to their family, but they said there's just too much vulgarity and stuff. So we've actually toned that down. I think we've still got some humor and adult content even, but it's a bit more kind of hidden, a bit more what would be the right way to say it, just sort of innuendo and things like that. So there's basically there's no profanity anymore, and we don't no F-bombs or anything like that. So I would say it's definitely not like for kids, but maybe middle school, high school age. I think it's completely reasonable for that sort of child to watch, especially if their parents are watching with them. So hopefully broadening the market and ultimately I'd say final point would be thinking more about what is a normie going to want to watch, or what is going to resonate with someone who really doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. So there's definitely there's still a lot of fun kind of Easter eggs and things that are going to really hit with Bitcoiners. But we tried to push a bit more in the direction of orange pilling new people, basically. So we'd love for the show to be successful with a broader audience, and through that, for more people to learn about Bitcoin. So I think those are the three, I'd say, highlights in terms of what we've done to change somewhat of the direction of where we were headed with things.
Okay, time to share the screen so we can take a look at the trailer. This is the website BTC and Friends. It says click to watch season 1 trailer. I can see some of the characters who are in this cinema and they're watching. You have Harold, you have Jones, you have the evil banker, you have Metallic, you have this guy who I guess creates Litecoin.
Char, yeah.
And Charlie, this lady, I'm not sure who she is.
I think she may be new. If I'm not, can't remember if we had her in the original, but her name's Xenia. She's an evil alien that's been possessed. But well, she's a human that was murdered and possessed by an alien. But anyway, people will see.
Okay, let's watch the trailer.
The humans are close to releasing their own decentralized cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. It is the final stage of their evolution as a species.
Hello?
Dad?
Oh, what a beautiful day. So this is Earth.
Key, where's your parents?
This is my buddy B. He's looking for his father.
This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Do it like that.
Soon the big bank is gonna own half the city.
We're building a fortress, a place where the Bitcoin community can unite to fight the forces of evil.
Boy, Sapphire Tower will soon penetrate the sky. Let the construction commence.
Hold that shovel, Mr. Sapphire.
What?
I'm afraid there was a last-minute bid on the land.
Howdy. You sold my land to a bunch of crackheads? How much you want? We only take Bitcoin. You've awoken the dragon. So long, Bitcoin.
Might have cranked the hash rate up a little too much.
Go, B, go! Nothing can stop you.
Let's go.
Yeah, that looks really cool. I like the new style of the animation. I mean, the characters are drawn the same way.
Right.
But it definitely looks like the technology has improved.
Definitely, yeah. And some of that is credit to Adobe because they have improved the software that we've been using. So that's helped. We actually ended up getting like directly connected with them. They liked some of what we were doing. So we've even been able to provide some feedback on the software and work with them. So yeah, it's really been fun to try to do this right. You know, I think in the end, in some ways I kind of feel like, and I've even joked with our team, like, you know, we'll probably leave the original pilot. We'll probably leave for people to watch. We've actually removed all the other episodes. You can find them online if you look hard enough, but we want to, you know, focus the viewership on the new version. But anyway, I've joked with the team that we should call the, you know, the original. We should call it the deprecated version, you know, because which is of course a term for software that's you know, basically being replaced. Like if you have a library and you're removing some features, those would be deprecated. But point being, I think it's, you know, there's no reason to not kind of go back to the drawing board with this and do it right. And anything worth doing is worth doing well. So I guess really it just comes down to we love Bitcoin, and we want to see we want to play our little part in helping this project to succeed, for humanity's sake. Really, we need, the last 2 years since I talked with you have just gotten crazier and crazier. And we are, effectively being ruled by a crazy gerontocracy of people who are completely out of it and really need to step aside. The American president, Biden, is just unbelievable that you got a guy who can't even walk or talk, and he's supposedly the president. So, I guess what I'm saying is I think more now than ever, it's very apparent to me that we are going to see a very bad future if Bitcoin does not succeed. It's either it's going to get more and more totalitarian, or we're going to break this cycle with Bitcoin. So it's very important that people understand that this is it's not just about gains or making a little bit of money or something. I think it's really more of an existential crisis for humanity at this point. And Bitcoin to me is the best chance that we have of not ending up in worse and worse situation as the years go on.
Yeah, coming back to the show, I just want to remark this. Usually when we get Bitcoin productions and Bitcoin culture, it's just stuff that already exists, which has a Bitcoin logo slapped on top of it.
Right.
So generally, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but the Bitcoin culture consists of stuff that's already popular, but modified to have a Bitcoin logo or a Bitcoin reference. You have created something that's entirely new. It's brand new animation. Maybe that you can identify some common stylistical similarities with other stuff, but it has an identity of its own. And you can clearly distinguish it. You look at it, and I think it has more of an identity than some shows on Netflix, which try too hard to replicate some other type of animation style. So congratulations on this, because I know it's hard. I took a look at the trailer. I saw how many, I think you have more, or maybe it's just the trailer, but you have more angles from which you present the characters. There are fewer NPCs, to put them like that are not animated, because before that they were more idle in the background. And what else did I want to say? I also noticed the effects and everything else. It's so professional.
Thank you.
Congratulate you for this.
Thank you. Yeah, well, this has really been one of the things I've pushed on in particular with the team. Is I didn't want us to be in a position where we were having to apologize, or we would have done it better if this or that, or having an attitude that we don't want to have excuses. And of course, for that reason, it's taken us a bit longer than we had hoped to get it done. But I'm happy to say we've got 8 episodes. They're in the can. I mean, we basically have some minor editing to do for a couple of the last ones. But because it's all done and in the can, that means that we're going to launch on January 3rd. There will be 3 episodes that can be streamed immediately that day. And then we're going to put the last 5 behind a paywall, because we're really hopeful that we can get enough people that like the show and are willing to give us a small amount of support. So we're thinking like $5 a month is what we're hoping we can get. If we can get a few thousand people at $5 a month, we can keep producing more and more of this content for people. And so that's the plan. We're gonna put it on we'll see how things go, but to start on YouTube, Patreon, and we're thinking maybe to do it on x.com, because they have subscriptions now and you can do video content on there, like Tucker Carlson and some others are doing. So the downside of multiple platforms is you kind of spread the views out, but then again, giving people more options to subscribe and making that barrier easier for people, I think is probably worth spreading ourselves out a bit. But so anyway, that's the plan. And then we'll release an episode probably every 2 weeks from there until we finish the first season. And there will be a bit of a lull, but what we're planning to do is to start producing some podcast type, video content. So we're thinking possibly doing like a writer's room where we let people actually, engage with us as we're working on the story. We might reserve that for like higher tier Patreon subscribers potentially, but also doing a podcast similar to kind of what you're doing here, having guests on, talking about Bitcoin in a broader sense and how the cartoon, impacts and kind of interfaces with what's going on in the rest of the Bitcoin community, I think would be interesting. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm really excited to see how people take to the first season, and hopefully it's enjoyed. But yeah, I'm glad you noticed the animation quality has been improved, I think, quite a bit, and that was a big priority for us.
Wasabi Wallet is unfairly private. It's the most advanced, most used Bitcoin privacy wallet, with 500,000 downloads across Windows, macOS and Linux, as well as thousands of fresh and new Bitcoins get mixed every month. Wasabi makes use of the new generation Wabi-Sabi engine to create mega conjoins, thus mixing your Bitcoins with those of hundreds of other users. For amounts lower than 0.01 BTC and remixes, you pay no coordination fee. If you don't use the conjoins, Wasabi Wallet has a native Tor integration and downloads block filters to help you keep your network level and public key privacy. Download Wasabi Wallet for free today at wasabiwallet.io and experience the future of Bitcoin privacy. Future of Bitcoin privacy. Future of Bitcoin. Future of Bitcoin. Future of Bitcoin. Future of Bitcoin privacy.
I think the previous version of it was a bit cringy, but at the same time, it was stylistically made that way. I mean, it made sense. You had to get used to the tone and to the humor. And once you got that out of the way, it was actually entertaining. I think I've watched all of them. One of the last ones included Dread Pirate Roberts, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And it was the story of the Silk Road.
Yeah, and so he's in the new season as well. He's not wearing like a American Revolution outfit anymore. We got rid of the Pork Fest scene. We felt that was kind of taking it in a direction that wasn't adding as much as it was just kind of confusing people. But yeah, so he's still a big part of the show. What else? Let's see. I think of other highlights or things that have changed. Yeah, I mean, a lot's changed, but yeah, Ross is still a part of the first season. We introduced Craig Wrong, who is, of course, styled after another Craig in the industry, or not in the industry, a notorious scammer whose first name is Craig. So anyway, we're definitely going after him, which I think is reasonable to do.
Oh, you mean Pumpkin Man Craig?
Yeah. Yes, that man. Mr. Pumpkin Man. Yeah, I got to be careful. We don't want to get sued. I mean, but yeah, a certain Craig. So that'll be fun. I think people will enjoy his story arc. He's I'm not going to spoil it, but he's in it. So and I think it sets us up for, we've got two more seasons that are outlined. So we're really hopeful that, but like anything, it's like we can't do this for free, and we can't just keep, we don't have the time to just do it. We really need it to actually be sustainable financially. But I think we have a good chance at this point. As I was talking with my brother over the last 2 years, it's like just looking at the numbers, assuming, there's a couple 100 million people that have Bitcoin at this point, which is probably reasonable. And then maybe 10% of those people are pretty well educated about Bitcoin. So maybe 5-10 million people. And then of those people, maybe 10% would be into a cartoon about Bitcoin. But point being, you start doing the math, and it's like there's got to be at least tens of thousands of people that would enjoy this project if they found it. That's my kind of, back of the napkin math on it. So if that plays out, then I think we're really in a good position, and we keep going with it, and potentially we could go for many, many years. It could become like a Simpsons or, Rick and Morty or whatever, where we just keep going. Every year there's more fodder for comedy in Bitcoin and the periphery altcoin and crypto industry. So plenty to, joke about, laugh about, talk about. So
yeah, if you ever need any more voices, don't go to Fiverr. I don't want to appear as a character. I just want to do a random voice of someone.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I remember the South Park creators. I think I told you this during the previous interview. Actually, this whole interview is sort of a deja vu, but they had George Clooney, for example, and they made him bark. And
You're right.
He was assigned to do the voice of a dog. So they asked him, "Can you bark?" And you're like, "Rawr, rawr." And he became the voice of the dog.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I think you have a unique voice, which would help too. Your accent and the tone of your voice. I think we as long as we can, find a European sounding character. But yeah, we've got like
I can be one of the crackheads. I don't care.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Hold me to it. We'll have you on the second season. We'll do it.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna roast you because you spoke about the monetization model. You haven't mentioned anything about how you're going to accept Bitcoin or Lightning or something else, as in set up a system. You said Patreon, you said X.com.
Yeah.
Neither of those are Bitcoin ways to pay. And also, I'm gonna roast you because of this. How does it feel right now to think about the fact that a couple of your episodes were sponsored by Celsius?
Oof, that hurts. Yeah, I think it was just one. It's tough because, to be honest, and this is still the case, it's difficult to find Bitcoin only companies that have money. This is just the reality. So, what do? Do you just not produce the content, or do you put some scammy project as an ad? I guess we've kind of leaned in the direction of the audience should do their own due diligence. And if they're easily duped, then sorry. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's tough, but quite frankly, I don't know if we could have, I don't think we could have produced the season if we didn't have those sponsors. So yeah, I'm sorry. If you got scammed by Celsius, I really am sorry. But at the same time, like, not your keys, not your coins. I mean, I think at least in terms of the content of the show, we've tried to tell people that Bitcoin is the real deal and everything else is a scam. And that has been, even that, to be completely honest, took a bit of fighting within the team. I'm not going to name names, but some of the people involved in the project would be, I guess you could say, more in the direction of a shitcoiner. So I've had to kind of push and fight. But overall, I think the positive outweighs the negative there. I hope so. But yeah, Celsius crashed and burned. But I will say, even with them, it was an interesting, I guess when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, earning yield on Bitcoin, like I could see why people would want to potentially look at that. And even now I was just at a conference in El Salvador and adopting Bitcoin, and you've got Bitcoiners and people there that are talking about, oh, we got to figure out, interest bearing products and lending and da. So, I mean, to some degree, I think it's just a reality of the world that we live in, that people are going to try to get something for nothing. And that's never going to stop. And people are going to always gamble. And, I'm going to tell people, hold your Bitcoin not on exchanges, self-custody, do the work, do due diligence before you get involved with anything. But some people are going to just do what they do anyway. So I guess we can just try to say what we believe and encourage people to be smart. But yeah, I mean, there was a few ads that I wasn't thrilled about. And even this coming season, we got a project that's doing like tokenizing real estate, something blockchain, something. But like, well, we need the money to produce this, and Bitcoin companies are not stepping up. I mean, I've had conversations. I was just at a Bitcoin only conference. I sat down with, CEOs of some of these Bitcoin companies. They don't have the money or they don't have the interest. And it's been a hard time for Bitcoin companies. I mean, any bear market is. Some of these guys have had to lay people off, and so for them to be able to step up and sponsor a video is maybe not in the cards right now for some of them. So, yeah. But anyway, so that's that. And then what was the first? You had two points, two roasts. Oh yeah, accepting Bitcoin. Well, so as I said earlier, we want this show definitely to be enjoyable for Bitcoiners for sure, and I think it is. But I think even more than that, we really do want it to be like an orange pilling, device. So if you think in those terms, then if you're looking for normies, you need to go where they are, and asking them to donate Bitcoin to watch a show when they don't even know what Bitcoin is kind of silly, right? So, I mean, I think we may look at I'm obviously familiar with Geyser.fund, I think it is. I met some of those guys. I like that project. It's, it looks great. But, they don't really have the Patreon model. They've got more of like the GoFundMe, Kickstarter model. And so it's basically they just raise money and then you hit like milestones and you release content. But I think for, kind of the way we're envisioning moving forward with the project, we want to try to get monthly revenue. It's much easier to actually be able to, project out in the future, hire people, have a schedule for production if we have some sense of what our revenue is going to look like. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, and there's some cool things happening with Nostr, with Zaps, for example, and I've been pretty active on Nostr and really been very bullish on that project. Or on that protocol rather. So yeah, I mean, we may do some stuff on there as well. But for kind of reaching the broader normie market, I think we need to go where those people are. And to me, that's definitely, YouTube, Patreon, and so on. But we'll experiment and we'll see what we can come up with. I mean, obviously, I would much prefer to receive Bitcoin if I had the choice. But I think, again, given kind of what I feel is our mission, we need to be out there and interfacing with these non-Bitcoiners. So there you go. That's the logic behind what we're doing.
Yeah, and honestly, 3 years ago when you launched that Celsius sponsored episode, Celsius was not as keen on gambling. I mean, they were more conservative with their interest and with everything. It's just that they discovered DeFi and they started dealing with shady tokens. And that's when it all collapsed. That's when they realized. I mean, some of the filings that have been released prove that it was always a Ponzi and it was never profitable and it was never capable of sustaining its model. So it relied on new money coming into the system. But I guess there are shades of it. In the beginning, it was a bit more legit than it eventually became close to its demise. So I met Alex Mashinsky in Paris, and it was at a conference, and he seemed to be aware of my podcast, and he was like, "Oh, I like your podcast, blah, blah, blah." And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I can actually ask this guy to sponsor my show because I knew he had a lot of money. But then I thought about my show, and I was like, yeah, but I'm promoting Bitcoin, and he's basically a bank, and it kind of defeats the purpose. So
yeah.
I'll try to just look for sponsors that are more in line with the message.
For sure.
I mean, on the long run, it's detrimental, and I don't have the production costs of an animation. But if you stick around long enough, I guess you get that Lindy effect, and people start caring about your work just because you've been around. My show is gonna turn 5 years next month in January. I think this is gonna get posted close to January.
Yeah.
So if there's any piece of advice I can give you is that you gotta keep going. You gotta be there and be in the back of people's minds. First they ignore you, they don't care. But then they start to slowly acknowledge that, okay, you've been here, you've built this, and we give you some recognition for it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think I've noticed that with the show. You know, I've gone to conferences now, quite a few since we spoke, and you know, and I've run into folks that'll say, "Oh yeah, I've seen it. I really like what you guys did," and so that's been encouraging. It's nice to know that we have some people out there that enjoy the project. Yeah, and we definitely want to keep with it, but you know, again, it's, you know, with a podcast, it's mostly just putting in the sweat, you know, putting in the time. With a cartoon, it's like we need a budget, we need money to pay people, because I don't have the time to animate. It's really not my passion. I do software for work, and Chris has got, you know, his docket is plenty full with his other business. So yeah, we've had to kind of you know, we kind of had a bit of a moment really there where we were trying to decide, you know, is this worth pursuing further? But you know, we felt like it was worth giving it one more attempt and seeing, you know, given the growth in Bitcoin in the world, that maybe this time around we could find a big enough audience to actually make it sustainable. So yeah, time's going to tell, but I appreciate you having me on to get the word out. Every podcast I'm able to get to is another group of people that might be able to come along and enjoy what we're doing and be a part of it. So
yeah, just for the record, I very much appreciate what you're doing, and I do have a question right now. Yeah, because I was looking at the trailer in the background without sound on, and I noticed this. So do you see the image?
Yeah.
There's metallic, and in the background there's a car, and I have to ask because it looks a lot like a Toyota Supra. Is this a Supra?
Yeah, it is, and that's actually left over from the original first season, and I think Jeff Berwick, well, that was his favorite car, if I remember right, and that's why because it was his car in the original. In the remake, it is actually Metallic's mom's car. So that's the story of the Supra.
But is it still a Supra in the new one?
I think it is. Yeah, I mean, we didn't change the artwork, so if it looks like a Supra, and I think I remember him saying, yeah, I believe it's supposed to be a Supra.
Yeah, it looks like a Mark V Supra.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I discovered this right now, as I'm not sure if you are aware of the Supra cycle.
The Supra cycle?
Yeah, exactly. The Supra cycle. Look.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, wait, so is this a race?
No, it's not a race. I mean, it is a race.
Supras?
So basically, the Supra cycle, let me show you. I designed a chart for this. It's a price prediction model, right? Because you're supposed to have that during the bull market. And I came up with
sort of like a super cycle, but like
exactly,
a play on words.
But with Supras and girlfriends.
Okay.
Basically, you get a Supra and you get a girlfriend. That's the concept. Because what do Bitcoiners want? They want girlfriends, honestly. We're a bunch of nerds. So let me put up the graph. I'm searching for it right now.
CryptoSteel offers a durable, physical backup for cryptocurrency key and recovery words. These user-friendly cold storage devices withstand harsh conditions, including fires, floods, and earthquakes. Made from the finest European stainless steel, they are built to last. Accessible to all and requiring no computer skills, the original CryptoSteel cassette and capsule have been innovating Bitcoin security since 2013. They provide a reliable and robust backup, essential for the safety and longevity of your digital investments. Ideal for protecting your digital wealth. Crypto Steel isn't just a one-trick pony. Of course, it works with your Beep 39 seed phrase, but you can also use it for important passwords, Bitcoin core passphrases, Nostr private keys, and much more. Buy your Crypto Steel metal backup today from cryptosteel.com and use promo code BTCTKVR to get a 10% discount. Crypto Steel. Secure your Bitcoin like an OG.
Basically, I created this chart. Unfortunately, Twitter does not allow me to blah, blah, blah. Open image in new tab. I'm gonna try. Let me see if my other screen works well. Okay, I figured out how to do it. Share screen, desktop 2. Do you see it?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a ramp that's going to 100K. Mm-hmm. Prediction is that by September of next year, you're going to be able to get a brand new Supra. And if you hodl more, you're going to be able to get the Mark IV Supra like in the Fast and the Furious, the movie.
Okay.
And that one has... That's like 80K.
Okay. So the first one is what? The red one is how much?
The red one is about $65,000 right now.
Okay.
It's the brand new Supra. What's not special about it?
The Mark IV is 80. Okay.
Yeah. The older one from the 90s is more expensive because it's iconic and it has this 2JZ engine, which is super hardened. It came up when it was released, it had about 200 something horsepower. You can tune it up to 1000 no problem. It's over engineered. It's a legend among tuning enthusiasts, and it's very much in demand these days.
Wow.
So that one is still selling for a lot of money. Supra is like Bitcoin, you know, the one from the 90s actually went up in price instead of losing its value over time. And the new one is pretty cool, is improved all around. I mean, I don't think there's anything in the original except for that magical engine, which is good for tuning. That's I think the new one is much better. That's my point. But the problem with it is that Toyota went to BMW to get the engine. So you're getting actually a BMW Z4 engine under the hood. It's not made by Toyota 100%. So some people say it's not a real Supra.
Right. Is that just because they weren't building enough muscle cars to, or whatever, race cars to justify making their own engine? Because they're known for having engines that are like impossible to break, right? I mean, practically.
But Toyota has been specializing on hybrids. So it would have taken them years in research and development to come up with a new one. And they just figured out, we can get this B58 or whatever it's called from BMW. And it's good enough. I mean, if it's good enough for Toyota standards, it should be super sturdy. I haven't heard many complaints. This new model has been around since 2020. So it's going to be 4 years on the market. And it's been pretty solid. But if you want the real deal, you have to get the one from the 90s, which is harder to find. And you're going to ask me now, why am I so obsessed with the Supra?
Okay,
yes. The answer is that we were all supposed to get Lambos, right? That's what the conversation was about. You're going to drive in a Lambo during the next bull market, but I don't have enough Bitcoin for that. And even if I did have a lot of Bitcoin, why would you spend so much money on that car, which easily breaks and is known to be unreliable? Insurance is going to kill you.
Right.
It makes no sense. So
agreed.
How do you get 90% of the Lambo experience at about 10% of the price? And that's how you end up with the Supra.
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of was thinking in a similar direction. I guess it was almost 2 years ago. I think it was, a little bit after I talked with you. If I remember right, it would have been, 21, I think. I bought, or no, was it 2022? I guess it's been, maybe it was the end of 2022. Anyway, I bought a a Hyundai Sonata N line, which is like their sporty full size. Not anywhere as nice as a Supra, but not too bad. It's I think it has 290 horsepower. So that was like my splurge in the last couple of years, because before that I was driving was it 2011 Toyota Corolla. But yeah, I like the design of this car too. It's
this is the one from the show. If you look at
quite beautiful,
the roof, it has this, what do you call it? The slope or whatever.
Yeah, kind of looks like a butt. Yeah, no, but yeah, it's a beautiful car.
And it's in your show. That's what I was trying to figure out. Obviously, he took some design freedoms,
right,
with creating this one. There is no air filter here, or what do you call this?
Intake or something.
Yeah, it's not there, but the shape of it is super similar.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So now I like it even more. I was not aware of this before we started recording. Now that I've seen the trailer and I saw that there's a Supra in it and it's driven by Metallic's mom, that's super cool. I mean, the fact that it's driven by Metallic's mom doesn't make it too cool, but I can get over it.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't drive it in the show, but it's her car, in terms of the writing of the show. So yeah, I'm glad that's a fun little Easter egg for you there, and that's thanks to Jeff. So I guess you have similar taste to Jeff Berwick on cars.
Yeah. After this bull market, I guess we should race or something. But something else which I noticed in the trailer, and it's another Easter egg, the startup sound from Macintosh computers is there when Bitcoin gets plugged for the first time and becomes alive. And I was thinking, it's cool. It's a very nice Easter egg. But Bitcoin was launched on Windows.
Yeah. Wait, do we know that for sure?
Yeah, the first Bitcoin client was only available on Windows.
Was it? Oh. Yeah, I hate Windows. I don't know. That's a good point. I guess if we'd known that, we probably would have switched it to a Windows login or boot up sound. But yeah, we're Mac users, Chris and I. Yeah, well, I have Linux too, but I haven't used Windows in a decade.
I dislike Windows. I get asked to reinstall Windows on laptops or computers by my family, and I get frustrated every time. It's so bloated. It's slow from the get-go. It collects so much information. I don't even understand why they're selling it. At this point, it's spyware. So they might as well give it for free and monetize your data.
Yeah. I did have it actually on a computer that I bought to potentially do some animation work, like some 3D stuff. But regularly speaking, I don't use Windows if I can help it. So
it's fair. I think the only legit reason to use Windows is for video games, because otherwise, if you get even the cheapest M2 Pro processor Mac, it's gonna smoke any Windows computer within its price range. Of course, you can do overkill and get those large video cards, the 3090 RTX or whatever, and you can get a bunch of those and also some i9 processors and build your own machine. That's going to cost a lot of money, and that one is gonna get a lot more raw power. But it's not, the problem is that with Windows stuff, you don't get much optimization. You can get a lot of raw power from the hardware, but usually you need specific drivers, which are not optimized for every type of configuration. So you have to do something specific if you want to get the most out of it. But with a Mac, you just buy it, and out of the box, the software works perfectly on it. And that's why I also use it for editing podcast episodes and stuff like that. It doesn't crash.
Yeah.
It's faster than a Windows computer. It doesn't create any frustrations. I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I've never had a Macintosh computer crash on me really, or give me too much trouble. Yeah, once I switched over, it was hard to imagine going back to Windows. Now I have a Linux computer as well. That's, I guess, on a PC, but that runs very well as well. Yeah, Ubuntu's nice. A little bit less user-friendly, of course, compared to a Mac, but generally speaking, not a bad little setup, especially for programming. I use it for projects. So, but yeah, no Windows when I can help it.
Satochip provides open source solutions based on smart card to assist you in your crypto journey. The hardware wallet lets you safely store your private keys within the tamper-proof chip memory, while Sato Dime allows you to create a barrier cold storage in 2 clicks thanks to its mobile app. And Seed Keeper is the ultimate hardware device to store and manage your seed phrases. Become self-custody with Satochip. Your keys, your coins.
I like the peace of mind that comes with Linux because it's modular. It doesn't come bloated with too much stuff. If you want to get more stuff, you can do that anytime. But at its core, I mean, you do have some distros that come with a lot of stuff, but it's so lightweight. It runs on any computer, even the one. I have this 2004 computer that my parents bought me, and it was running Windows XP. And right now, I basically revived it with Ubuntu, and it works so well. It's like, I think it runs better than it ever did on Windows XP.
Right. Well, this is reminding me of an article I read where they were highlighting that the problem with modern computing is as the computers become faster and faster, there's just been a lot of laziness in terms of the software implementations and actual writing of software. And so, it's essentially just like taking that additional power and just wasting it on sloppy software, basically. Like in other words, probably the bigger gains in the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to be on building better software as opposed to, increasing the speed of the hardware. There's a lot of room to go with optimization of software. So yeah, that doesn't, what you're saying is exactly in line with that. They just bloated these Windows machines with so much shitty software that, they destroy any computer that you put them on, basically.
It goes deeper because you deal with Chrome and these modern internet browsers, and they take up so much of your RAM.
That's true. Yeah. I have the perpetual problem of having probably 30 tabs open at any time. I don't know. And I even have a lot of stuff bookmarked, but I have this almost like OCD thing where I just can't close tabs. And like, but I might need to get back to that, so it just, the bloat grows. But that's why it's probably good to shut your computers off once in a while and just restart them so you can start fresh. In a sense.
Yeah, this is something that I like about Bitcoin engineering, that everything is super efficient and the conversation doesn't revolve around, let's increase the block size perpetually, but more around this idea that let's figure out ways to make transactions smaller or batch transactions or do something that actually reduces the amount of data that goes into Bitcoin transactions. Even ordinal inscriptions, if you hate them, that's fine, but they're much more efficient than the alternatives for embedding data. I mean, what Casey figured out is pretty elegant.
Oh yeah, I guess I should probably mention it because it'll be found out. We minted 21 ordinals for this launch. I mean, I wouldn't have probably done it if it was just me, but I was getting I got outvoted by the team. But nonetheless, so those are going to be, I look at it as if you've got a nice amount of Bitcoin and you want to support us, you can buy a receipt that, you know, a fancy donation receipt is basically what I would consider it. But yeah, anyway, but that was interesting. For me, I think I'm glad I actually did the minting and you know, kind of dove down that rabbit hole. I'm glad I understand how it all works. I do have some concerns actually that, you know, perhaps it's far-fetched, but the biggest issue I have with ordinals, of course, is the scheme, you know, for actually numbering the Satoshis. And of course, it's completely arbitrary. But I've thought of a potential attack vector, which is if a government could force all people using Bitcoin to use an ordinal scheme, then they could effectively track everything, and or at least potentially so. And that would be very bad for Bitcoin and fungibility. So, you know, there's the side of me that's always thinking about what's the worst case scenario. And that, you know, aside from the blocks being filled up with these inscriptions, I think there's maybe some risk that, you know, if a system becomes more and more used, and then eventually it becomes even perhaps mandatory, I see some danger there. So, but yeah, it's interesting the last few weeks, especially. It's become very much more divisive, and you know, and then you've got the ocean mining pool situation that you know, he's trying to cut them out, but in the meantime, he's also cutting out the samurai coin joins, I believe. So have you been following any of that situation?
Oh yeah, I very much enjoy engaging with this. So just for the record, this show is sponsored by Wasabi Wallet. I have been a user and a fan since they launched. Basically, I guess I was late by a few months. I started using in January or February of 2019, and they launched in October or November of 2018. But basically, I expressed some concerns about Samurai's model. If you're not running a dojo, you're basically trusting their backends, their Electrum servers or whatever they're running with your Xpub, and that's leaking a lot of information and makes the coin joins kind of pointless. But I have been a critic of Samurai, but in this whole situation, I feel for them. I sympathize for that project.
Yeah.
It's their business model. They use upper turn for that, and there's a mining pool that's not including their transactions. I mean, it's a paper tiger for the most part, as Ocean has very loud advocates, but at the same time only mine 2 blocks in a month. So it's not such a big deal. I think they did a pretty good job marketing the whole project. And this outrage actually turned out to gather a lot of attention from people. But it's a lot of noise. They're still in a minority.
Right. I mean, what do you know what percentage of hash rate they even have? It's like, is it under 1% or?
If you look at mempool.space, and by the time we publish this, maybe that they can get more hash rate. But even Brains, which is the former slush pool, is below 1%, I think, at this point. So, yeah, I don't think Ocean is going to get that much traction, but it's a good, I guess, citadel or hideaway place, or call it what you want, for people who disagree with ordinals. It's good to have these clubs where people can get together and disagree with each other and have organized camps. This is the beauty of decentralization. People can organize and they can disagree with each other.
Fight for what they believe in. Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think the one thing that was a bit odd to me in this whole situation was that Luke was making it sound, when I read I think it was a tweet about it, that you know, it had always been, what is it, 42 or 41 or whatever it is, kilobytes, or sorry, bytes, not kilobytes. But when you look back, well, I think he's been a little bit disingenuous, bottom line, in terms of essentially trying to claim that Bitcoin has been this way. And the reality is Bitcoin Core has been, I think, 83 for at least 3 or 4 years. So he's in the very far minority in terms of that decision to limit, the size as he did. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's in the end, these are ultimately probably good things that you've got people advocating in different directions and building in different directions. And, and it's an adversarial network. So, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are wanting to operate in good faith and do right. But, people also can be misled, right? Case in point with Bitcoin and Friends, like here we had an advertiser that turned out to be a total, shit show with Celsius. And, when we were bringing them on board, I definitely didn't think that they looked like a shady organization, but at the same time, how well do you know anyone? And, you got Mashinsky coming out with, his successes in the past. And, this is a guy with money. He knows what he's doing. And a lot of people will just line up. And I guess we, in a sense, we're on that side as well. Well, he's a successful person. So therefore he's a wealthy guy. He must know what's going on. He must know what he's doing. And there's a lot of risk in that. So yeah, it's good that Bitcoin is about verify, don't trust. And we all, or I think in the end, most Bitcoiners are working in the same direction, even though we might not always agree on everything.
Yeah, about Mashinsky, since you spoke about him and the concept of don't trust, verify, it seems like nobody from the VoIP community, the ones who developed ways for you to make calls online,
right,
actually know about him. And he was presenting himself as this innovator who created protocols and worked in communications. And his tagline was that he was working in VoIP, voice over IP, and now he wants to make money over IP, MOIP, which is pretty cool when you say it. But we didn't. I mean, I interviewed him a couple of times for media organizations where I was working, and he was always open, and he seemed genuine. But I also didn't do the work to see what his credentials are. So I feel guilty of that.
Yeah.
That was me 6 or 7 years ago.
Right. And I think we were in the same boat. You see articles and maybe it's partly because when you see someone who's working, he was at least friendly towards Bitcoin, even though he was doing a lot of other stuff. But at a minimum, he was friendly, from my recollection, he was friendly to Bitcoin. So, then it's kind of that's what affinity scamming is, right? You go into a group of people and you say, hey, I'm one of you, therefore trust me. And here's this thing I'm doing. And then people will, instead of being skeptical and doing the due diligence, they just go along with the person and trust them. So yeah, I guess he essentially executed a very well designed affinity scam. And it worked. But yeah, because I really did think, I was like, oh, this guy's like a big VoIP dude. And I remember reading about that and just, believing it. But, I do think too, it's just, some of this is a matter of growing up, quite frankly. We have to learn the hard way. We get burned by people, and we learn to be a little bit more cautious moving forward. And, the last few years especially have really pushed me further and further in the direction of questioning everything that I believe, that I think I know, and being willing to, which can be scary. It's scary when you feel like you don't even know, what direction is up anymore. But the alternative is to be led around, by the nose by people who don't have our best interests at heart. And so, yeah, and I think the Bitcoin community, to me, is really, it's been fascinating to see that it's really growing into a movement that, it for sure, the money is the main thing that pulls us together. But I do see, I don't know how to say it, a movement, a culture that is forming out of it that my hope is that we can, if this all plays out as we hope, which is, that Bitcoin is the money that everyone on earth is using someday, or at a minimum, it's the money that's backing all the money that everyone's using, however that works, whether it's Fedi mints or whatever. But if this all plays out, then I think we have a duty for those of us who are going to be holding a lot of the wealth in that future to think differently. And I think the good news is that in order to get this far as a Bitcoiner, you have to be willing to think outside of the box and to think against the majority and to think long term. So in other words, I think Bitcoiners are the adults, quite frankly. The more and it's ironic because, of course, it's opposite of how you get the spin in the corporate media, which is that we're all these crazy, toxic, I don't know, just like psycho people who are just trying to break everything. And the irony is that actually we're trying to preserve civilization because it's falling apart all around us, because we live in a world that is run by liars and operates on lies. So speaking truth is very, it's very counter to the norm. But I have a lot of hope. I really do. Bitcoin is hope, as Saylor talks about. And, if we can fix the money, I do think fix the money, fix the world is at least largely true. Not that it's going to fix everything, but there's a lot of incentives that are broken today that can be made right if we don't have clowns manipulating interest rates and ultimately stealing the life of everyone else through those sorts of policies. So, man, what a time to be alive. It's quite exciting for me to be sitting here and, to be hopefully playing a very little part, but a part nonetheless in what we're all trying to do here. And, but yeah, I want to meet you in person someday. It's like every time I get to these events where I meet Bitcoiners, it's just always the highlight of, my years, these different events. So maybe you can make it. I highly recommend adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador. I've been twice now, and I'm going to plan to go back again next year. That's been an amazing event. It's very high signal. It's a lot of Bitcoiners, a lot of builders. So come down if you can. And otherwise, I think we're going to also be heading to the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, Tennessee. That's on my calendar. Yeah, so we'll see. Perhaps some others as well, but you can't go to every conference. There's a lot of them happening these days.
Hello, Bitcoin Takeover listeners. This is Victor from IVPN. We could have produced the flashy ad with lofty claims, but we like the straightforward approach, so I'll just stick to the basics here. How are we different from other VPN providers? IVPN is run by Bitcoiners. We've been accepting Bitcoin since before the block size wars, now using BTC Pay server, and also accept Lightning payments. We also aim for radical transparency supported by open source software, regular audits, and a transparent team. And finally, there's absolutely no KYC with IVPN. We don't ask for an email or any other personal information when you sign up. If you would like to test our service, send an email to trial@ivpn.net to receive a 30-day IVPN Pro voucher.
Hello, I'm Vlad, and I have been a user of IVPN Pro for longer than 1 year. What I like the most about it is being able to use 7 devices at the same time and using the multi-hop feature to connect to 2 different servers of my choosing at the same time. Also, your account consists of a randomly generated string of letters and numbers which are not linked to your email address, bank account, or real-life identity. You top it up with a Lightning payment and you get instant confirmation at low fees. Definitely get your 30-day IVPN Pro trial by sending an email to trial@ivpn.net. Make sure you use a burner email address that you probably already have for trolling. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the European ones in principle. And probably if I go to the US, I'm gonna choose TabConf in Atlanta. for no other
Okay.
reason than the fact that I prefer to listen to developers who work on new stuff as opposed to hype men and marketers who talk about
Sure.
stuff I already know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was invited to TapConf. I met one of the guys that was organizing it because I went to BitBlock Boom, which is also a great conference it was in Austin this year. But I couldn't do it. It was just I had too much on my plate. So, but yeah, I'd love to go to that conference in particular. I've heard very good things. As you said, it's focused on developers, new projects, and yeah, it sounds like it's worth being involved with if you're in the direction of developer or like cutting edge user or whatever. So
yeah, also on the topic of what you just said about affinity scammers and the fact that we tend to follow the wrong people and it's part of the learning curve, I was gonna put out a tweet along these lines that when you first come to Bitcoin, you follow some influencer or YouTuber or educator and you think that they know stuff. And of course, they know much more than you do, but they just relay information that they get from somewhere else. And then you're going to search for the source and you're going to get to the ones who influence the influencers, who are usually developers or bankers. By bankers, I mean people like Barry Silbert or Mashinsky or whatever. They're all the same to me. They're suits who try to play along the rules of the mainstream financial system. Also, the Gemini guys, the Winklevi twins. Right. And you look up to them and you think, okay, these guys are the real deal. They have a lot of Bitcoin. They know stuff. You know, Michael Saylor also, he's in the same category. And then you realize that the bear market comes and they're naked. And you figure out, okay, they have no idea what they're saying. Nobody really knows what's going on. And that's the most beautiful feeling, because on one hand, you feel lost and you're like, there's no control over this, but that's the best part. It's decentralized and it's supposed to be this way.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a different world. There's never been anything like Bitcoin. So coming to it and expecting to understand it because you heard some guys talking about it is definitely naive. But at the same time, we all, we have our way of getting in, and I'll forever be thankful for Andreas Antonopoulos. He was my guru, you know what I mean, in a sense, when I first got into Bitcoin. And so I'm grateful for people standing up and talking and trying, but there are definitely scammers and and we, what is it about, killing our heroes, or what's the phrase?
Slay your heroes.
Slay your heroes. Yeah. So at the end of the day, all humans make mistakes, and we all do things that we probably would do differently if we could go back. Right. So, so don't follow any one person, but that's the good thing about what is happening here is it's a free market in really the truest sense. Like, if you can afford to buy a computer, and I mean, granted, you need a computer and some electricity, but like generally speaking, if you have a brain and you want to put some work in, you can learn how to code, you can be a part of it. I mean, 10 years ago, I was not a software developer, and now I'm making money doing it. And, and maybe someday I'll even contribute to, I started learning Golang about 4 years ago with the goal of wanting to work on L&D, and I still haven't gotten to that point. And maybe I never will. I don't know. We'll see. But having goals, you never know exactly where you're going to end up. But I think it's really important to set goals and continually, recalibrate, set new goals, and keep pushing in the direction that you want to push, in the direction where you would like to see the world go. Right. So, and we'll all learn and change and develop as we go. But it's exciting to see that. I think we're going to win. I really do. I think we're getting close to or maybe we're in the they will fight you phase, right? So it's like they ignored Bitcoin, then they laughed at it, and now we're getting to the fighting phase. I'm sure you heard about Elizabeth Warren, obviously. Thankfully, she's got a
Who?
zero.
Senator Karen?
Yeah, Senator Karen herself. Pocahontas. So she, she's the good news there is at least that she's never passed any bill that she's brought forward is she's got a zero for like 250, 300, I forget, several hundred bills she's brought forward, and she's gotten zero of them passed. So but that's good news. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next couple of years. The United States is really, I think, like a powder keg. I'm actually not living in the United States right now, and I probably won't be moving back anytime soon. I'm actually happy to not be physically in that country, even though my entire family's there. But I kind of feel like, if there's a chance of that ship sinking, it'd be nice if I had a spot carved out somewhere else for my family to come to. So that's kind of where my head's at.
It's interesting that you went from pessimistic to optimistic and now back to pessimistic.
Well, okay. Yeah. I guess what I mean is I think I'm optimistic that we will win in the end, but I think, in the short to medium term, I think things could continue to go very badly for a long while. Structurally speaking, you have in the US, you have massive debt. You have, basically we're close to not having a replacement rate for the birth rate. I think it's under. I think it's like 1.6 or something. And what is like 2.1, I guess, is replacement rate or whatever. So no, I think the boomers have really screwed the pooch, as they say, and we're in for some bad days in the West. But I am, for me, I'm optimistic on El Salvador. I'm optimistic on Mexico. In my lifetime, I've been to Mexico quite a lot, and I've seen as opposed to a lot of the West where the direction has been down. I've actually seen economic improvement in Mexico, for example. So, I think countries that are still a bit more conservative in terms of family values, which Mexico still has a largely conservative Catholic culture, I think they're going to fare better. The U.S. to me has really been gutted because my entire generation was convinced that having a family was for suckers, and you should really just focus on making money and living. Go move to a big city and live it up. And now the big cities are collapsing, and so no, it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm optimistic for Bitcoin. I'm not optimistic in general in terms of average quality of life in a lot of countries. I think is going to suffer. But for those who are listening to this podcast and who are doing what they need to do, they're going to be okay, I would imagine.
I sure hope so. And I like to brag that my listeners are a lot smarter than the average. And this was confirmed by a couple of my sponsors who told me that the people who come from my show are pretty educated and they know how to use stuff. And the ones who come from more popular shows that deal with more newbies cause them trouble with customer support. So at least there's that. I don't get hundreds of thousands of views per episode or something, but the ones that I get are pretty high quality. And when I go to conferences, people tell me, oh, I've listened to that episode of yours with that and that. And that's when I realized, okay, so these are the guys who listen. They're not the newbies. The drawback, on the other hand, is that I can't get them to buy stuff. It's very hard. They already have everything they need for their setup. They don't need to buy devices. They don't need, to sign up to exchanges. So it's hard to do onboarding.
Right.
But I have patient sponsors and they like what I do.
Right.
And
you're a higher signal source than a lot of the Bitcoin content. I've definitely noticed that as well. But it like you said, it cuts both ways because it means your audience is a bit smaller and perhaps a little bit more cautious to buy things and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So let's end the interview with this. Why should the listeners who got up to this point with their listening go to btcandfriends.com and check out the episode?
Well, I think as I kind of just went over the doom and gloom situation we're all facing, it's good once in a while to kind of disconnect. I don't watch TV. I don't really watch movies too often. I'm a little too busy, and there's too much better. There are many better things to do with my time, but it's still fun to once in a while unplug and, kind of just veg out a little bit, have some fun. So yeah, why not? Why not enjoy some comedy and some Bitcoin, and go to btcandfriends.com, check it out. Hope you enjoy it. So that's the pitch.
Thank you very much, Robert. I hope that next time I get you on the show, your brother is also going to be part of it, because I can't wait to make him do some of the voices in the show. But for that, I guess the show needs to become more popular and get some cult following, or people willing to listen to that kind of crazy stuff with
exactly
some guy who does voices.
Yeah, he'll be willing if we have a decent response to this first season. I think we could probably pull him in next time.
Yeah, and best of luck with this. Congratulations on improving the animation and everything else. I'm excited. I'm gonna check it out on January 3rd. There seems to be a lot of stuff happening on that day. People seem to be trying to take advantage of that. There's a book by one of my friends that's launching on the exact same day, which is the Bitcoin Genesis book by Aaron van Wirdum. It's about the cypherpunk origins of Bitcoin. I'm going to get that. I'm going to watch your show. And I don't know, maybe I'm going to have a pizza with
it's Christmas Day
and pineapple.
I was going to say, it's like Christmas Day for Bitcoiners, right? January 3rd. So why not?
Okay, Robert, thank you very much for this. And I look forward to watching the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.